Hi everyone, it's Carolyn here again for another message. And this time I'm going to give you 8 more things to know during your spiritual awakening journey. And that follows on the heels of the first 8 things that I gave you to know during your spiritual awakening journey. So one thing I didn't do in the beginning of the last video is talk about what spiritual awakening is. That's not what these videos are about. They're basically for those of us who kind of understand what it all already is. So my intent, though, is to do a channeled message on really the depth of spiritual awakening and the definition. I don't think I've ever done that. In fact, I know I haven't. I've talked in general terms about it. So I think that would be useful. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to finish out this, and I'm going to give you 8 more things you should know about your awakening journey. And so a lot of these come from my own journey that I've gathered over time. And again, this is not exhaustive and it is in no particular order. So thank you so much for joining me again today. And if you're new to my channel, Carolyn Zaiser, I'm a spiritual awakening mentor, I'm a channel, and I'm a distance energy healer. And I thank you for joining me today. And you can get a free video below in the description box where you'll see that you can get 6 tips on how to create flow in your body for health and wellness. But frankly, the best part of it is you get a lot more free content because you end up subscribed to my email list. So join me if you want free content in addition to what you're already receiving here. So for those of you who are new, typically I do offer channeled messages from the light keepers, but on occasion I will offer some tips just from myself. In addition to the fact that I offer those channeled messages, I also offer my takeaways. So with that, I hope you will join me in the future. So for the start of the next 8 things for you to know in your awakening journey, number 1, diet changes. So essentially what's likely going to happen for you is you're going to find some needed desire to ground yourself. Okay, oftentimes that comes through what we eat because we're not grounded. Because as we start taking in these energies and we start becoming more, I guess I would say, moving into our higher frequency state, our more natural state, we can often become very ungrounded. So that's an important thing to do. And oftentimes our body will do that through diet changes. What happened with me is, oh my gosh, I started eating so much more starchy food and chips. Oh, I can't stay away from chips. But again, I have been very much drawn to the starchy, heavier foods and breads. And I never have eaten much bread before. I just always used to kind of joke about that I, forget bread. I don't need that at all. Well, no, that's not true in the awakening journey, for me at least. The other thing that's been really odd is I can barely find anything I want to eat. I don't eat fruit anymore. I know that's probably not great, but guess what? My body does not want fruit. I still am into my vegetables, but for quite some time during my early awakening journey, I shifted and I didn't know I was awakening then, but I shifted from eating chicken, beef, and pork, and I haven't eaten that for probably 15 years. And I do eat seafood. So that there is also a tendency for some people to move toward vegetarianism or sometimes even veganism. And so just know that diet will change very likely. And I think the biggest thing for us is during this journey is to lean into these changes. You know what? We can so often shame ourselves for eating what we are eating, but sometimes you need that cookie and sometimes you need that big ice cream. So lean into that and just know that your body is telling you something. In particular, what it was for me is I really needed to be grounded, and I still don't find great ways of being able to do that other than being out in nature. All right, so that's the first of the next set of 8. Number 2 is challenging of your beliefs or breaking down of long-held beliefs that you've had possibly over the course of your lifetime. Typically what we have learned from childhood on. A lot of those are religion. Another can be political beliefs. Those are probably the 2 biggest things that I've seen hit me. The other part, or another one is that we are divided or that we're different or that we're unique. And yes, we're unique in how we express ourselves. But what it became readily apparent to me is that we're all one, just expressing our uniqueness in different human forms. So that is something that breaks down is that kind of, for me, it has been that competitive way of being. I also have had my beliefs challenged. So what happens is, and I'll talk about that in a second, but what happens is all of a sudden you kind of get this shredding effect of, oh, this pops in. You start learning things in your exploring stage, and things start coming into your awareness where you realize, oh, wow, this is shaking the foundation of everything I am. And this can be, for many people, very earth shattering, particularly if they were very, I'll just use rigid for the lack of a better word, in their belief system. So just know that I think the stronger you are connected to the things that you've believed throughout your lifetime and the less flexible maybe you've been, the more this can likely shake you. But this is part of the awakening, to open you up to that understanding that so much of what we believe has been created by the human construct. Okay? So that's a big piece of the awakening. And my beliefs, I was going to just give you some examples. So for me, the competitiveness of me, I just did a video on that. It broke down to the point where, I just like to do things for fun and enjoyment and not feel I have to win all the time. Additionally, for me, religion, I came from a very liberal background, so I have explored a lot of different religions, or even not just maybe in practicing them, but in learning about them, and I have always been very open-minded. That has been less of a situation for me to break down, but it still has broken down in the sense of understanding something different from my perspective. Politics is probably a big one, and feeling like I have to be involved and understand and know the news every minute of the day. I was a news hound. I had to know everything under the sun that was going on. Not anymore at all. I don't subscribe to newspapers anymore, and I used to love to get a newspaper in my hand in the morning. I just love that. I used to watch Morning Joe on MSNBC regularly before I'd go to work. Oh my God, what a way to set the day, right? And not saying you can't do that, but that's just not for me anymore. What else would I do? Oh, I was also involved heavily in politics. Oh my gosh. But you know what? I had to journey through that. Those are the things that we learn from. So anyway, don't beat yourself up if all of a sudden all that shifts and changes and you look at yourself and you think, why did I do that? You did it because you needed to learn and have that experience. All right, number 3, reach out for help. This is one of the things in the awakening where we tend not to do because we don't know anybody who can maybe help us or understand us. And that's kind of true. I understand that. But what I want to say more than anything is I still feel that forget spiritual awakening for a moment. If you're in crisis during spiritual awakening, you still got to go get help, okay? Because sometimes it can get really tough. And there are still people out there who, even if they're not going through awakening and are still what we might term, living in 3D, right? Which is the vast majority of humankind, they still want to help, and there still can be help offered. And then you have to use your discernment as to what kind of help you want to receive, right? But reach out for help when those really difficult times come. And plus, I've gotten involved in some beautiful online communities. It took some time to actually find those people. I would say over the 3.5 years I've been going through this consciously, I have gone through about 3 different groups of people that have all served me well at different times, and then we kind of fade out of each other's lives and we move on. All awakening, folks, but this is kind of what happens. You're on your journey, and now I'm in a group that I feel like, I'm in with my soul family, or a part of my soul family. So that takes a while, but just know that there's all kind of help out there for you, whether it's within the community of people spiritually awakening, or if in fact it is, and that's online lots of times because you don't usually have people, in your local area. We can often feel lonely, as many of you know, but also just the regular folks around you in your community. There's a lot of services and help that if you just want to talk with somebody, now they're not going to understand the spiritual awakening part of this, most likely, but they can talk to you and be an ear for what you're going through in many ways. Just the mere fact that some of these things that happen, a lot of people go through, right? The relationship changes, the challenging of beliefs, things that just kind of break down, new awarenesses. So reach out for help if you need it. Okay, number 4, follow up on your passions. So this is a time where all those things that we have stuffed down, that somebody told us, well, you can't make money doing that, or that's silly, you'll never be good at that, or it won't get you something. Go back, dig it out of the drawer, and start doing it or pursuing it. or finding something new that you want to do. This is a creative time, and it affords us, as we move through this journey, the opportunity to explore things that we've not explored before, oftentimes because we were told we can't, or that it's not going to get us somewhere. If you love it, go do it. Even if it's taking a class to explore it more, and then you build it into your lifestyle. So a good example for me is my artistry. I enjoy doing sketchboard and painting and drawing, and right now I don't have a lot of time for it, but in my early days, what I was doing is I was getting it all out again, and I was doing some nice pieces and really honing my craft. And I felt so whole, which now is making me want to do that again. So I need to find time and space for that. But in the early days, I was really wanting to create out of that and regain my artistry. I was also wanting to create in other ways through my gardening work. And so I created an herb garden, which has been amazing for the neighborhood and has also offered me, something beautiful that I can put my heart and soul into that I have always loved. So create out of this in the sense of finding what those passions are. We all have them. And if you can't remember them, or if you don't have any, or you don't know what you love or like, that just kind of, and that's kind of was me, kind of will just show you how ingrained we are into the, oh, we have to work hard mentality and don't have time for fun and joy in our lives. And yet we do. We have to carve that time out for ourselves. And this is the opportunity we have for doing those kinds of things. So new passions and desires will probably come your way as well. Follow the thread and start exploring, even if it's for a few moments a day or a bit across the course of your journey. Because the thing is, what can often happen is now that we're going through awakening, we're offered a lot more support in a very different way. We've committed to this awakening. We're moving into that new phase of our journey where so much more opens up to us. And honestly, we have so much more support because we're aware of that support. Consequently, you pick a passion that you want to work on or maybe create out of, or who knows, create a business even, or provide for the greater good out of it. You can do it. I firmly believe that. It's happened to me. That's how I have the work that I do now. I just followed the thread of what I saw coming toward me and what I absolutely loved. So know that you can build out of that and completely create out of it during the awakening. This is an opportunity where we are being called upon to be all we can be, create new things, create new ways of doing things, things that you see in your heart that you've always wished to do, and that also very likely are going to help humankind in a very different way. So number 5 is, so many of us think, what's our purpose? You have to have the one purpose. I need to know what I'm doing, what I need to do. First of all, I could go on long, all day long about purpose, but purpose is as purpose does. But the most important thing that we need to remember is, first of all, this awakening journey is about working on ourselves, all right? Working on ourselves to find the deep love, peeling off those layers, understanding who we truly are. That entire journey of conscious awakening to the trueness of us, that divine spark that's in us. Not all those layers we've added on like winter coats over the years and created this kind of figment of our own imagination, right? To one degree or another. But one of the other bigger things is that we impact others just by being in this awakening journey, just by traveling this awakening journey. We continue to start taking in more light, all right? We are opened up to the energies. We are more sensitive to the energies. I've talked about being more raw before. We are carrying more light, and with carrying more light comes the affecting others. You can just sit there and do nothing, and your light shines for others, whether you're around your community, your family, your friends. And yes, you may feel lonely that nobody's waking up with you, but I'm going to tell you right now, many of you will start seeing that friends, family members, as you travel down your journey, suddenly you're noticing people getting a spark of awakening. They might start seeing the numbers. They might start, actually even getting the physical, I'll just say ailments or symptoms, fever blisters, cold sores, things like that. And they'll start to come together because these energies are pretty tough nowadays, right? So they're going to start to see that. So they're getting impacted by the energies. They're seeing the numbers. They're their habits are changing. They're moving more toward, and I'm just using an example of my mom. She has started her awakening, and she's 82, and it is the most awesome thing. But it's because she's been around me so much. And of course, she's, probably programmed this into her own soul journey. But the thing is, helping spark other people's awakening is a real thing just by being there. And so these subtle shifts you're going to start seeing, and it's so exciting, particularly when they start seeing the numbers. You're going to just kind of jump out of your skin with excitement for them. So we're here to help others in our way just by being that light. So know that you have impact on others. So number 6 is take time to be alone. This is critical, I believe. I think we all go through a phase, and it can often be quite long. Everybody's is different, where suddenly we could be the most social person in the world, and we want to just be home, and we want to be alone, and we don't want to be around crowds, and we don't want to be around loud noise. You become much more sensitive, and yet this is the cocooning time. This is the time the transformation is really happening. I mean, you're always transforming, but at the same time, this is the time that you need for yourself. So if we fight all these things that show up in the awakening, it's just going to make our journey much more difficult. So understand that, yes, we have to go through our human life with work and all of that stuff, and that can kind of be hard at times, but take that day that you need at times, if it's a sick day or whatever. Or, if you've got a busy family life, start setting some new ground rules that, mom or dad needs or brother or sister needs their own time. All right. And then you start taking your own time, because it is doable. It's important. This is where it's time for you. And yet at the same time, we do have to balance our responsibilities. But again, what I really look at during that time is, as we go through that cocooning stage, that metamorphosis, the butterfly's not doing that with 10,000 other butterflies in their cocoon. They're in their cocoon alone. So find what works for you, that solitude, that quietness, so that you're not feeling so overwhelmed during this journey, because as you know, you become much more sensitive during this time too. So lean into what you're feeling. Okay, number 7, you'll start to want to shed your material things. Cleaning house. All of a sudden, you might go on a crazy rampage one day, like I've done, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta clean today, and I'm getting rid of so much stuff. It's just almost like it's heavy energy. And also cleaning things out from the past that no longer serve us. That's what I've noticed too. Being less interested in shopping, material things, that whole thing. That is also something that I think is helpful to know about, because you may go on a complete fit in your house to just get rid of so much. I know people who have gone to the point where, they have the belongings that are in their hands, essentially. And that might be an exaggeration, but yeah, it's kind of true. So to one degree or another, you're going to start feeling like you want to do with less material objects. It's kind of that more authentic way of living. Number 8. So one of the big things that happened to me, and is something that I have difficulty even being able to satisfy, is my desire to be in nature. Suddenly, the least nature-oriented person very likely is going to start to want to be connected to nature in some way that makes sense for them. Being outside, you almost feel like you're going to hyperventilate if you can't. That's me. I'm having that struggle now. I'm in Iowa, where we don't have a lot of great options for a diversity of outdoor activities. And, kind of once you've done certain ones, you've done them. And then you have to travel quite a ways to do something different. But anyway, the point is, and then of course we have our tough winters. So getting in nature is critical for me, and I'm really struggling with it. But my point in this is, when you feel that, go for it. It helps with your grounding. Many people really want to connect with nature in the sense of even just leaving the city and going in and living in the country, or having a more grounded experience, literally, camping more, hiking more, getting in the waters, being at the beach, all of that. This will help you immensely, because what's happening during this time is you're reconnecting with your true nature, because we are part of nature, rather than this construct we've created of this human being that's separate from. That's just not the case. So you're really reconnecting with your origin and your roots. take advantage of that in any way you can. And what I'm going to say about all these things real quickly, and then I'm going to leave you with one last one, which is a bonus one, number 9, is it's important to lean into all of this. If we fight these natural feelings, you're going to have a darn tough awakening, because I firmly believe we can go ahead and turn our backs on the awakening, but you're going to have a tough road to hoe, because essentially it's always going to be there in your face, and you're going to keep going about your 3D, but you're going to always be poked at and prodded at, and then you're going to miss out on this beautiful journey. And yes, it is full of, things that are potentially difficult or disconcerting, or that you're learning that aren't real, and you're wondering, what have I been doing all these years? But what the beauty is now look what's coming your way. Do you want to ignore that and not face it? No. And you don't want to get poked and prodded all the time. The more you lean into this and take care of yourself during this time by the things that I've talked about, the more of a robust journey you're going to have, with eyes wide open, quite an adventure, and more ease and grace is going to come your way in it too. So I want to leave you with one last thought, is that this is a switch that goes on. The awakening can come in one fell swoop through a traumatic event, a difficult time, you name it, illnesses, deaths, sickness. That's usually your dark night of the soul. And not everybody will have a dark night of the soul. But oftentimes, like mine, I was very much initiated into awakening on a conscious basis through my dark night of the soul when my partner passed away of brain cancer. During that 10 months that I actually knew him during that time, we battled that situation together, and it just cracked me wide open. But the thing is, I had been awakening, I later realized, for about 6 years, 5 years prior to that, but I wasn't consciously aware. It's when you become consciously aware of it that you truly, I think, are going through the awakening, even if maybe beforehand you were going through that. But that switch goes on. And at some point, that switch is going to go on, and you're going to make the conscious connection, and then there's no looking back. And when you do, you're going to find beauty and joy in this journey, along with the struggles and difficulties. But just know that this is all for your greater good, the greater good of you and the collective as you journey forward in this beautiful awakening journey, and that there are many others out there just waiting to help you. So with that, I'm going to leave you today, and I thank you so much for joining me on this. If you're interested in talking to me further about my services to help you out along your awakening journey, visit me at purplerainhealing.com, where I offer spiritual awakening, mentoring, distance energy healing and channeling, and channeled personal messages, where you get a boatload of information on your journey, your life journey, and the things you've always been wondering about, and assisting you forward on the spiritual awakening path. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.